Welcome to Cooking with the Halfling. If you're new here, welcome to our Halfling, where we talk about Lord of the Rings and do some Lord of the Ring things. So let's get started. Well, today we're doing Cooking with the Halfling, and we're going to do a Turin Turambar themed meal called Turin Turambar Tarrogn Chicken. It's one of my family's favorites, and I thought we could make it and talk about the mess of Turin Turambar. So let's get that started. So first, I've already got our water boiling. We're going to boil some pasta, so I've got that started. We're going to go ahead and get started on our chicken. So I have the ingredients laid out for us here. The only thing missing is the chicken, because it was defrosting when I videoed that. So you're going to need about 3 tenderloins of chicken, kind of depending on how many people you want. And then that big mess of circles is zucchini. So the recipe calls for 3 zucchinis, but we usually stop at around 2 zucchinis. So first things first, once you get your water boiling, you're going to put a 1/4 cup of olive oil in your pan. And then we're going to put our chicken in. And you're going to want your chicken to saute for about 4 to 5 minutes on both sides before we start doing anything. And this recipe only takes about 20 minutes, and that's after you've got, your chicken defrosted and your zucchini sliced up. It'll take about 20 minutes to put all together. So it's a pretty quick and easy meal. Now we just kind of wait for the chicken to cook on one side, wait for the water to start boiling, and then we'll add our pasta. In the meantime, let's talk about Turin. Okay, this chapter, I gotta say, this was one of those chapters that I got done with it and I was like, Tolkien, are you okay? What were you going through when you wrote this chapter? It's a mess. And just from a story perspective, I guess from all encompassing the whole Silmarillion, the only thing that came out of this was the destruction of Nargothrond and the killing of Glaurung. I'm not sure why we had to take the route of incest to get to those 2 things, which is why I'm just wondering, what was Tolkien going through when he wrote this chapter? It's crazy. And Turin himself, I feel bad for the guy. He had a rough start. Because if you think about it, when he was 8 years old, Hurin goes into battle, gets taken captive by Morgoth, but Hithlum doesn't receive any news of what was going on in the war, but they do get this onslaught of Easterlings coming in and sort of pillaging everybody and taking the elves captives and everything. So, that's kind of how they found out what was going on. So you have here Turin, who doesn't have a dad now, whose mom just lost their 3-year-old sister, who they named, her name meant laughter. And so she's dealing with the loss of a child. And then tack on top of that Morwen is also pregnant. She's got hormones flying crazy. So Turin didn't start off great, right? His dad's gone. His mom is kind of barely holding it together, I imagine. And she has a good idea of taking Turin to Thingol. That's decent. But she doesn't want to go with Turin, which I find problematic, because it's hey, you're pregnant. You got another kid coming. Don't you want to keep them out of harm's way? But she chooses to stay where she lived her life with her husband. So I kind of understand that, but definitely feels like emotions are driving Morwen. And if emotions are driving Morwen in these choices, I imagine it drives her in other choices. which isn't always the best in making logical decisions. So, and then when Turin actually gets to Thingol, like, the book says that Turin was a sad and sorrowful kid. So he's already dealing with a lot. No dad, no mom, having to leave the only place he's ever really known, and then living with Thingol, who Luthien seems well-adjusted, I guess, but Thingol is always described as being upset. He gets mad really easily. So, I just don't know. And, like, his opinion of men have just recently changed. So, I don't know if this is necessarily the best environment for Turin. I mean, his mom's making the best choices that she can. So, like, I get it. But, yeah, I don't know. And I don't know if things would have been different if he had gone with Baron. Maybe that would have played a different role in him. I don't know. I also just don't know if Turin's behavior really was necessarily dependent on being raised by Thingol or not. If he was already a sad kid and going through a hard time, I'm not sure how much that would have made a difference. So, I don't know. I feel bad for him. And at this point, they don't know about the curse on Turin and the family. Got those flipped. Water's boiling, so let's get our pasta in. But then, Turin... Okay, so the thing that I don't know, and this could have been a genetic thing, Turin definitely seemed to be a man of action, right? I mean, it says that he's the only one left, and he is fighting with a blaze of glory, right? And that's how he gets captured by Morgoth. So, Turin's temperament could either be because he's the son of Turin, or it could be because of Thingol. Thingol seems a little hot-headed too. I don't know. Ultimately, though, I don't think Turin's behavior has anything to do with the Curse of Morgoth. And in fact, I'm not really sure how much the Curse of Morgoth actually plays a role in this. Like, does Morgoth actually have the ability to control fate? I don't believe so, personally. I think he can manipulate situations. You definitely see that with Glaurung, that he's manipulating when Glaurung comes out and, what Glaurung says to Turin. There's definitely like a controlling nature in that aspect, but he doesn't really have control over Turin as much as he has control over Turin's environment and maybe shaping or helping shape Turin to make the choices that he makes later on. But ultimately, Turin has the final choice in what he does and doesn't do. So, I can't really say that there's a whole lot. And plus, on top of that, I mean, Turin doesn't know about the curse until later, so he's just making bad choices, right? So, like, with Sauros. Okay, so he doesn't get any messages from Morwen anymore. Something happens there, and he doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't get messages from them anymore. And instead, like, in my opinion, the logical response would be like, well, let's go check on Morwen. Maybe there's more to that. But instead, he, I need to keep an eye on this. Okay, so the pasta needs to boil for about 10 minutes. Okay, so once both sides of the chicken is cooked, we're going to add our zucchini. Anyways, I feel like the logical response would be to go and actually check on Morwen and his sister. But no, he decides to go to battle. Which, I mean, I guess there's logic to that too, because I mean, the thought is that they got attacked, so cook your zucchini for 5 minutes. We're going to stir it up and then cover it so it gets the zucchini nice and steamed. So he goes into war, right, for 3 years, and then he comes back, and he's being picked on by Sauros, which, I don't know. Maybe he's been in battle and wars, he's been through a lot, and he probably just doesn't want to be picked on. But at the same time, it's like, Turin, grow a pair. You're fine. Just him making some comments about where you come from. Get over it. Saute for 5 minutes. But Turin's reaction to Sauros just seems impulsive and ridiculous. Like, okay, you threw a bottle at him. All right. You were angry in the moment. We'll give it to you. But then to hold on to it long enough for that the next day you come back and you're like, I'm going to beat you up, strip you down, and then hunt you like a dog? Come on. There's no curse involved in that. That's Turin making bad choices and ultimately causing the death of someone. And then being, I don't know, maybe it's not melodramatic. I kind of felt like it was, to be like, I'm not going to go to Thingol because he's going to get mad at me. It's like, well, yeah, you were kind of stupid in what you did, but it's not your fault the dude wasn't watching where he was stepping. Kind of, little bit. He was naked, so. But, I mean, he could have gone to Thingol anyways, and at least taken it like a man. But, nope, he decides he's gonna run away like a child. And maybe he kind of is. He's like 21 at this point, so technically you're an adult, but let's all be honest. We were all dumb kids when we were 21. So, yeah, and he joins a gang. He turns 21, he runs away from home and joins a gang. He joins a group of outlaws. He's a regular teenager. There's no cursing around this. He's making regular, dumb choices. And keep in mind, during this time, Morgoth doesn't know where he's at. He's not paying attention, not that he's not paying attention, but he doesn't know where Turin is, right? So he only realizes where Turin is when Turin kind of reveals his hand, wearing the dragon helm of Hador, wearing this heirloom on his head, kind of announcing who he is. And, later bearing the sword of Girthing or Anglico. Like, unless Turin announces, hey, it's me, Morgoth doesn't know where Turin is, and so Morgoth doesn't have a hand in what's happening in Turin's life. Turin has full control over what's going on in his life because he's making the choices. And he's making bad choices. And I think Turin wants to make good choices, he just doesn't know how to make good choices. And that's kind of sad. He keeps falling short every time and giving into his impulses, really, giving into his anger. Okay, so our pasta is done boiling, so I've got that set up. We've got our zucchini and chicken ready to go. So the next thing we need to add is our garlic and pine nuts. So you need 2 teaspoons of garlic, and then you'll need a 1/4 cup of pine nuts. Oh, and then this needs to cook for 2 minutes. Okay. So I don't know how much Morgoth is actually involved with the and that's another thing, like, if we look at other places in the Silmarillion where fate has intervened, it will state that fate has intervened. You don't get that just a whole lot with Turin. There's a couple of places where, fate is kind of guiding the situation, but really it's just Turin making bad choices. So, yeah. And then, talking about the incest, like, that was just a mess. I don't know how else to put that. It's a mess. Like, why would you put that in the story? Like, what purpose does that serve other than just showing? So, editing Halfling here. I don't know why it didn't dawn on me while I was filming this, but I was talking about this with my husband, who opened my eyes to realize that this is the story of Oedipus. That's why there's incest in this. Tolkien has revamped the story of Oedipus. So, there we go. I don't know why it didn't dawn on me at the time of filming, but yeah, once my husband said that, I was like, oh my goodness, yes. That's what this is. We have revamped that story. So, anyways, there you go. Turin's bad choices have brought him there. Because think about it. If he had done what Gwyndor had asked him to do and gone after Finduilas, who's to say those two wouldn't have ended up together? She already loved him. And then if he comes and saves her, how do you not love the man that saved you, you know? So, if he had gone after her, then maybe things would have been different. And I think that was Glaurung's point. He wanted, that's what Morgoth wanted. He wanted Glaurung to get him away from Finduilas. So what would Finduilas and Turin, what would that have brought about? It's a what if, so we don't know, obviously, but that would have saved a lot of trouble. I don't know. Okay, it's been 2 minutes, so we are now going to add creme fraiche, and our tarragon. If you have fresh tarragon, even better, do that. And lemon juice. So I don't have lemon juice. We're going to put in balsamic vinegar to get that same acidic taste. Now, the creme fraiche is 8 ounces, so about 8 tablespoons. The recipe calls for 7. We usually just go ahead and put in the full 8 because this is the only thing we use it for. So I'm going to put in the full 8 ounces. Oh, and you need, if you have fresh tarragon, because that's the better way to go, you'll need half a cup of chopped tarragon. I obviously don't have chopped tarragon, so I kind of just season to our liking. But yeah, so even in that situation, it's not that Turin is cursed as much as it is that Morgoth is manipulating the situation to basically get him away from Finduilas and, whether intentionally or unintentionally, falling into Nienor and then marrying his sister. But as a writing story plot, like, why include that, like, over the grand scheme of things? Because she gets pregnant. Like, it mentions that she gets pregnant, but then she doesn't have the baby. Like, she dies, I'm assuming dies pregnant, because there's no, who's the kid? I don't know. So, like, why, I don't know, why include that information? So that's a little iffy for me. Again, if you have 2 lemons, use that. We don't. We have balsamic vinegar. And so I'm going to season to my liking. To my husband's liking. So yeah. I never understood that part. And then your creme fraiche, you don't want it to boil. So turn your heat down. You want it to get hot but not boil. This is a very sensitive part. I just find the incest thing a little out of left field with Tolkien. You can definitely tell that this chapter, though, is based around free will versus fate. Like, how much of Turin's problems are due to fate and the curse versus free will. In my opinion, it's all Turin's fault. He made poor choices. Because think about it. When it came to choosing to go after Finduilas or go after Morwen and Nienor, he was given a fork in the road. He had Gwyndor telling him, go after Finduilas. That's what's in your best interest. And then he had Glaurung, a dragon, a liar, a servant of Morgoth, who's a liar, telling him to go after Morwen and Yennefer. So, and it says that, there is a spell on Turin to stay where he is. But is there a spell on Turin to listen to Glaurung, or is it just Glaurung and Morgoth manipulating the situation? This is a little watery, so I'm gonna let it cook for just a minute to kind of thicken it up a little. So, I don't know. I personally, in reading this, and I'm sure there's lots of debates on this, but personally, in reading this story, I see a man who's supposed to be the hero of the story making poor choices, and the whole time you want to root for him to make better choices, and he just doesn't. Like, okay, he joins a band of outlaws, right? Well, he bullies a guy to die. Joins a band of outlaws. They beat up a bunch of dwarves, and then the dwarf convinces them to come to his home. They kind of become BFFs. And then he sees Beleg, and you have, his reuniting with Beleg and all of that, and the introduction of, well, you have Beleg come in and then leave and then come back, and you have Mim betraying Turin, which, okay, maybe, I don't even know if that's really a curse, though, because Turin was already kind of revealing himself because of the dragon home. So it was already kind of known that Turin was out and about around here. And yeah. And again, that's not really a curse or fate as much as it is just Mim being a petty dwarf. He just made a bad choice, and he reveals Turin. Right? He doesn't really reveal Turin. He just says, don't kill this guy, and the orcs are like, well, we know that's Turin. So, again, and really, that's not fate. That's just Turin making bad choices and friends. Making bad judgment calls. And then you have, later when Turin gets captured and Bella goes after him. Okay, I will grant that what Anglakel does, maybe we can say that's fate. But when Turin takes the sword, Turin has full control over his actions. And he impulsively kills this guy. He doesn't know who it is. He doesn't know his surroundings. And I kind of get it. Like, you're under a stressful situation. You're suddenly woken up. You're going to fight. I get that. But it still calls back to his impulsive choices. He kills Beleg out of this. And, later Gwyndor regrets even saving Turin in that moment. So, I think this is fine. We're going to turn this off and add our pasta. Ooh, yes, she's hot. Woo! I'm going to get the pasta all mixed in. And then that's it. So, yeah. I just don't know how much you can really say. You can see Morgoth manipulating situations and particularly with Glaurung. Glaurung, I think, is where the manipulation occurs. But Turin still has full control over his choices and what he does and his actions. And even with Yennefer, let's bring her in. She's technically also cursed, right? She's being warned, like, hey, this person, you don't know who he is, but he makes bad choices. Stay away from him. And Yennefer is kind of this whole like, well, the heart wants what the heart wants, and you can't help that. I'm like, so she's being told, like, don't do this. But she was raised by a woman who I'm going to assume, just by context, lived her life based on her emotions, and it seems like Nienor is doing the same thing, right? She chooses not to initially take the proposal of Turin because it feels odd to her. But then later, when she doesn't have this odd feeling anymore, then she, decides to marry her brother. Unknowingly marry her brother. So really what you have here is two people being guided entirely by emotions and not by logic. Maybe that's the real lesson here. Don't let your heart's deceitful. you gotta only take the facts. So yeah, Turin, it's hard. It was really, really hard to return. I mean, if you've been following me, you'll probably notice that there was like a week-long gap between the last chapter and Turin. And that's because it was just hard for me to read. It was so icky and gross, and it was just really frustrating. Like, you want to root for the hero, but I just could not root for him. It was very frustrating. It's sad. It was just a tragic telling. And yeah. I feel bad for Turin. This looks so stinking good. Oh my gosh. I did enjoy the story because it's a good story, but it's just a very frustrating story to read as well. But even though this was a icky story, this is stinking delicious. And it's making my mouth water so much. Ugh. So, icky story, delicious meal. And I think this one's actually like inspired by Glaurung. Yeah, the description says that they hope that this meal would have been something that would have given our grief-stricken hero a little respite. It does need a little bit of tarragon, so I'm going to add some tarragon to it. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I love making these cooking with a halfling videos. They are my absolute favorite to make. So I hope you guys like this one. It was a little bit of a different setup. You're just kind of hanging out with me while I cook and talk about Turin. And if this is something you like, please let me know, because I really enjoyed it. I like talking about this stuff and cooking, and I hope you guys liked it too. And I hope you guys are able to give this recipe a try. So yeah, I hope you guys liked the video. I hope you guys have a wonderful, blessed week, and may your homes be filled with food and cheer. Bye.